Yo, what up? This is D Knight, and you're listening to the Pardon the Insurrection podcast. My oh my, we've had so much going on. For starters, in case you missed it, we've got a new addition to the Pardon Pie family, Tara Dublin. Make sure you go follow her on Twitter at Tara Dublin Rocks. Also, pick up a copy of her book while you're at it. Make her day, The Sound of Settling. A very fun and interesting read compared to the things we talk about on this podcast. But yeah, we're heading toward the do or die time for the 2024 election. Go ahead and hit up joebiden.com. Get that man like $1 a month or something. Help his campaign staff up and get prepared to try and save our democracy. And make sure to grab like one other person you know and tell them about the podcast. Make sure they subscribe and tune in every single week. We got a lot of things coming up for you this year. We need all the support that we can get. So if you do your part and help us grow our audience, we'll do our part and help elect Joe Biden in 2024 and save American democracy. And this is the Pardon the Insurrection podcast. Yeah, I'm sure he's seen a lot of butts, but again, this is an audio only platform medium. Like the audience can't see any butts.
You did not come here to talk about old lady butt.
All right.
It's okay. It's all right.
Cute butt. It's a nice butt, Carol. You've got a great butt.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Hey, this is D Knight.
This is Carol.
This is Ty.
And you're listening to the Pardon the Insurrection podcast, where when we try to impeach presidents, we actually offer some fucking factual information. And we tell you what he's being impeached for. Of course, there's been a lot of crazy news in the headlines. We're going to get to that at another time. But today, what we do have in store for you is a special guest, an elected official from Linwood, Washington, Josh Binda.
That's going to be awesome.
All right, Ty, tell us about our special guest for the podcast this evening, Josh Blinda. Welcome to the podcast.
Binda.
Oh, did I say your name wrong? I'm sorry. See, what happened was, look, there's this guy.
You are going to cut that out.
No. It's going,
because he asked which spelling it was yesterday, and then I told him, but then I started making up a bunch of other names, including Bender, and then I started spitting Bender.
I've heard Binder.
No, what had happened is there's a former NFL quarterback for the Packers named George Blanda, and I keep putting that L in there every fucking time.
You're not doing sports ball.
I've never seen George Blanda play, but I know his name because I'm a sports ball nerd, and that's what continues to happen with your name in there. I apologize.
You didn't call your ex's name, so I'll give you a pass.
But like, it was just like one letter. All right. I got it. Look. Okay. So we had Tara Dublin on the podcast a couple weeks ago, and I kept on like almost calling her Tara all the time. That's because I have an ex named Tara. Thanks for pointing out where I'm slipping. Josh, I don't have any exes named Josh, so you don't have to worry.
Good, man.
In that regard. But
don't
yeah.
worry. D is so comfortable with how straight he is that he tells us all the time.
How straight he is.
That's how you know. That's how
like
you know
dick.
he's totally cool.
Okay. Well, okay. So before we get to your backstory, Josh, on like your journey through politics, I can tell you the one place that I do know you from. It's from like your thirst trap posts on the IG.
I did.
How'd you see that?
I Googled.
What do you mean? Like, who hasn't seen those? Like when Ty was like, "Hey, Josh wants to come on the podcast," I was like, "Yeah, I know that guy. He's the one with the shirtless pics out in Washington. Yeah, I'm familiar with his."
I don't know how the fuck I made it to the Daily Mail, the New York Post. It's just wild to me that is it really that rare to be hot in politics?
Right.
like, damn.
All right. Like, how inappropriate can we be with you on the podcast?
I didn't show the full frontal. I just show the side.
Okay. So here's the thing. There are some attractive individuals in the political landscape. Typically, they don't pose shirtless. And in the rare occasion when you have like your phone or your laptop hacked, you might reveal some. Well,
no, they
the
don't
length of your
shirtless. They go straight to paid intercourse.
Yeah.
What? I'm just thinking of a certain person. Her name rhymes with Schmore and.
All right, no, not her, but I was talking. We have another individual who's facing some political fallout, even though he's not been elected to office. About the length of his endowment.
Oh dear. Does he have one of those toilets? Like
does his name rhyme with Schmunter Fiden?
Bingo, you nailed it. But no, that's not. I mean, it's not that I know you from that. It's just like that was the thing that stuck out in my mind. I was like,
did you know that before Ty introduced me, or was that afterwards?
Yeah, I seen the pictures before. It wasn't new.
Oh, did you?
All right.
I introduced you.
Okay, look, man. So your story popped up.
Not the pimp I thought it was. All right.
Your story has popped up on the news headlines a couple times, and like one of the things in there is like, oh, we got the IG picture with the shirt off. I was like, damn, it's flexing. But yes, you are one of the few members of I guess the Democratic Party in its entirety, even at a local level, that's able to do the shirtless thirst trap photo.
It wasn't meant to be thirst. You know, I was just
standing there looking hot. It's not your fault.
Yeah, you know you fine. You know you fine. You ain't got to play my. All right, but no, let's get to
you have to apologize for it. That's just not fair to you. You were born that way.
And I think what it is I think here's the thing. Me personally, like at least my generation, like we post shirtless photos all the time. Like it's not like you go like. It's not new, something new. This is on brand for me. You go on my IG, you see, like this is not new. You know what I'm saying? So all of a sudden, and I would say this is probably one of my least provocative photos I have.
No.
It's okay. Shit. It's totally fine. Look, there are a number of individuals in higher office who've done far more provocative. Anyway, so yeah. Tell us about how you even got involved in politics in the first place. Like, what was your impetus for running in office? By the way, just and tell the people where you're from and what office you're currently holding, all that good stuff.
I'll introduce myself. For those who don't know me, my name's Josh Binda. I'm 24 now. I'm a city council member in Linwood, Washington. Got elected in 2021 at the age of 21 and became the youngest BIPOC ever elected in state history. Woo! So that was a pretty big feat. You know, it was really cool. It was a dope experience. And how I got involved in politics, man, I tell people all the time, I really never saw myself as a politician ever. It wasn't something on my agenda. It wasn't something I thought that was even I was capable of doing. Before politics, I was an athlete. You know, I was a football player and I was a track athlete, and that was kind of my thing throughout high school and all that, a little bit of college. But after, when I realized that wasn't going to be my full-on path, I kind of went through a little bit of identity like crisis. I'm like, okay, who am I without all this? What am I passionate about? What do I care about? You know, when I'm not, you know, if it's not sports, if it's not these other things. And I think where my stem into activism really came in, because I was an activist before I was a politician. That was kind of my thing. And where that really stemmed from is a little bit about, I have to kind of go back to my family background. Both my parents were originally from the West African country called Liberia. They were born and raised there. My dad was literally born in a village. Like we're talking about huts and stuff like that. That's where my dad was like literally like poverty, you know, and so both my parents came from that area, and in the late 1990s, we had there was a pretty corrupt president at that time in our country called Charles Taylor. And there's a huge civil war going on in our country. They were slaughtering people left and right, and like there's a huge battle kind of thing going on.
Yeah, we're familiar with his work. We're trying to avoid that here in the United States. Anyway, sorry, continue.
Hopefully we can. You know, I'm really hoping. I didn't move here to join another conflict.
No, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off. I just had to get that in. All right, apologies.
But we tried to escape, you know. But anyways,
hey, yeah, look, if y'all don't vote for Joe Biden, and to the listeners, if y'all don't vote for Joe Biden out there in 2024, we're going to be fleeing to Liberia.
By the way, Derek, I just want to say, just from your tweets alone, Joe Biden better have you on his payroll. Like if Joe Biden wins this election, that Negro better have you on stage, because your tweets. I've never seen anyone in my life tweet more about voting for Joe Biden than you. I swear to God, if Joe Biden wins, he better have you on his payroll after that, because
he should.
You've been doing your due diligence.
If he wants singularly motivated to not be killed. That's the
yes.
That's your motivation, right?
I am doing my best to avoid the United States reverting back to a time where our people were enslaved, if not worse. So yeah, that's typically my motivation. I wake up every day doing whatever it is that I can to avoid slavery or internment camps or being in, whatever the Negro version of a pogrom is in America. I try to avoid that at all costs.
I don't think you'd make it to that. You would be locked up with the second or third round of journalists.
Yeah, they definitely go after like MSNBC first and CNN and the New York Times and then my black ass. Anyway.
But to get back to the story, so basically in the late 1990s, there was a huge civil war going on in our country, and both my parents were trying to flee this war. And so what had happened is my dad, he's probably one of the luckiest men on this earth, I swear to God. He happened at that time. He played an international lottery, and they still do it to this day. There's this lottery you can play around the globe where if you win this lottery, it's like one of these 1 in a million things. That you get this visa that you could, if you get sponsored from another country, you can migrate to another country. And so my dad happened to play this international lottery visa during the war, just like a ditch effort to see if we could get like our family out of there. And he happened to win. And so my dad was able to win this international lottery visa. And through that, he had a family member in Rhode Island, which is where we came to, that was willing to sponsor him so they could come here and escape the war. And so they were able to leave our country as refugees and were able to migrate after our family from the East Coast that we had here bought them tickets to come out to the United States. And they literally came here at that time with my 1-year-old older brother. I wasn't born yet. With my 1-year-old older brother and my mom and him came to the United States, came here with nothing but the clothes on their backs and just left everything they knew and went to Rhode Island to stay with our family out there. And then about a year and a half later, in 1999, I was born. So I'm a first generation African. I made it past all of that, luckily, by the grace of God. But yeah, I was born about a year and a half later, and that's kind of a little bit of my upbringing. I would say my dad and my mom had split in the early 2000s. My dad kind of went off to go do school in Texas. So my mom ended up raising me and my 3 other siblings. She was a single mom of 4 by herself in the projects where we were at. There's definitely a lot of, gang violence, a lot of drug dealers and all that kind of stuff in our environment. And so naturally growing up, I was a little bit of a troublemaker. I was in school, I was the class clown. I was doing my own thing, and I was always very bright and smart, but kind of where we're from, like education and stuff like that, just didn't seem feasible for a lot of us. I remember thinking, like, what's the point of this? Because my parents can't afford college. We're in an environment where not many of us make it out of here. So I'm just going to play sports and that's going to be my ticket out of here, And so during that time period, definitely was, like I said, causing trouble, getting the fights in school and all that kind of stuff like that. And by the time I was age 13, my dad had moved up to Washington State, and he got a job up here at Boeing and stuff like that, which he's still at right now. And so my mom thought, after discussions with my dad, thought that it would be best for me to get out of there and get a change of scenery, because she thought the route I was going down, there's only 2 other things that was going to happen. I was either going to be dead or in prison, one of the two, with the people I was surrounded by and the things I was doing at the time. And so my mom gave me the option, and she didn't force me. Like, she gave me an option. She was like, hey, Josh, like, I think you should go live with your dad. I think it'd be a good change of scenery and all that for you. And I remember thinking to myself at the time, I was like, man, why would I leave? Like, first of all, like, I harbored ill will feelings towards my dad at that point, because I felt like he abandoned us, and he left and did his own thing. So I was like, I don't know if I want to go out there and live with him and all this and that. And I just want to, I have all my friends here, my family here. Why am I going to leave? But I just remember, I don't know what it was. I just felt a nudge and just felt like I kind of made a decision on a whim. I was like, you know what, like, maybe I should go out there and see what's out there and see what's about and all that. And basically up and left my mom and my sisters and stuff like that and flew out here to the West Coast, stay with my dad and go to school. And I would say that really completely shifted and changed my entire life. Honestly, that one decision I made really changed the entire outcome of everything for me. Just from going from the environment I was from, like underfunded schools and this and that, and like just all these like things, that these environments that were not positive, to all of a sudden going in this predominantly white area with all like with these, high end schools and all the resources and all this and that. It was like a huge cultural shock for me.
And a good football team.
And a good football. I'm not gonna lie. There's something about people in the hood, man, because they know they got everything to lose. They ball out hard.
No. Don't be like Dion in that press conference talking about he want a quarterback with a happy home and 2 parents, and like he wants his defensive end or something, like a broken home, and he don't know what he's gonna. Please don't do that.
But no, after I came out here, and so the reason I'm telling this backstory is because once I went through high school and I had my experience and I was, doing all this in sports, and I, obviously changed my entire life. My senior year, I was like ASB president of our school. I was football captain. I was doing all these things so I completely turned my life over. But once I kind of got through that phase where that was done, I was just like, okay, like, who am I? What am I without this? And, I think I found my passion for activism because I think through my lived experience, I saw how people where I were from, the students that I grew up and all that, how the difference between the resources I had access to that changed my life compared to what they had access to, and things that they grew up with. And I remember a lot of my friends that I grew up with in Rhode Island and stuff like that. They were just as smart as me, just as gifted, had just as many skills. Some of them even more smarter than me. But then after like catching up with them after high school, they're back slinging dope in the streets, or they're doing some gangs and the gangs and do all this and that. And it's not because that's who they were, but that's because those are the cards that were dealt and the opportunities they felt they had. And so I became a huge activist for social and racial justice, especially, and for making sure, trying to find ways where people from different demographics in different areas have the same access to the same equitable resources as anyone else, because I know what that was like to not have those things. And I know what that difference that made in my life, And so I became a huge advocate in that. And then I started slowly getting towards seeing what was happening in my local community. So I remember going to my city council meeting for the first time ever in my life and seeing when I went up there, I saw 7 old white people sitting up there. And I'm like, okay, so this is the people I didn't know. I didn't know any of their names. I didn't know who they were. I didn't know what they were about. I just remember sitting there and I was listening on the meeting, what they were talking about. And I was just kind of hearing the things they cared about and all. I'm like, man, my community don't give a damn about this. We're struggling with this. We have this going on. They're talking about, like keeping everything like, for how we're going to change things for their homeowners and what resources we're going to help to make sure they wanted to keep things exactly the same, the status quo. And they weren't talking about, how they're going to represent people that are renters or that are underfunded or don't have the same background. So I was just hearing these conversations. I'm like, man, these people don't understand there's a whole demographic of people in our community that they're just not like that have needs too. You know what I'm saying?
I hate to correct you, but I would say that they probably do understand, just don't care. And
there's both of that too. There's an understanding and there's not caring as well. And that's the thing. They never had to care. That was until I showed up on the scene, baby. But
no, speaking of which, tell us about your entrance into the political scene, given that the circumstances of you running for city council it was a surprise to a number of people for sure, and I'm sure even more surprising you coming away with the victory.
Oh yeah, I'm telling you right now, man. Nobody thought I was going to win this thing. I remember after like the whole year of like, especially 2020 to the Black Lives Matter movement and all that kind of stuff, I was a huge activist in all of that. I was out there protesting and marching. I led probably about a dozen protests all across the state. And I remember feeling empowered through that. I remember like I kind of built a name as an activist through that, through interviews and all that kind of stuff. But then I remember like walking away and thinking, I'm like, all right, this isn't going to last forever. I'm like, all right, this is great. We're out here vocalizing what we want to change. We're out here talking about it. But I'm like, at the end of the day, the true change, it comes from legislation. It comes from reform. It comes from policy, things that are implemented. And so at this point, I was 21 and I was a junior in college. And so I remember like after thinking this, I was like, all right, I sat down with my parents. I think I had a girlfriend at the time, and I talked to the people around me. I'm like, man, I think I want to run for office. And everyone laughed. Everyone laughed. Everyone's like, Josh, what the hell you think you be run for office? I said, like, they're like, are you kidding me? I'm like, bro, you're still in college. Like, what do you mean you're going to run for office? You haven't even gotten your degree yet. You don't know anything about politics. Activism and politics are two different. I heard all the no's I could possibly hear from so many different sides. But one thing about me, and I think that's one of my strongest powers is I'm someone that I'm very confident in who I am and my purpose and what I want to do. So if I feel called to something, I don't care if I have 100 yeses or one yes, I'm still going to do it. If that's what I feel need to do. Because like I'm my own biggest believer. I learned at a young age. I say young age like I'm not still young, but a younger than
You
you know.
still
Yes,
young.
yes, we all feel 90 years old compared to you.
And so honestly, with all I've been through in life, I'm starting to feel anxious. I'm starting to get backaches. I feel like I'm starting to get headaches. Like I'm starting to feel it a little bit now. It's like I had my first back spasm the other day. I'm like, damn, I'm getting up there.
Bro,
like,
you broke one too many tackles in high school. That's all that is.
no, for real.
Are you still like doing exercise at a gym? People at home can't see I'm making quote things.
Yeah, no, I'm still working out, but now I actually have to I actually have to stretch. Like
Yes.
before I didn't have to stretch. I could just go up and start pushing it out and do. But now, like if I don't stretch, I'm pulling something. And so
just you wait. 10 years from now, you're gonna like have to stretch, and then when you go to the gym, you're like, all right, it's time to go lay it down, baby. 10 hours in the bed. I'm ready to go.
No, for real, man. And so I'm starting to feel a little bit of effects now that I'm in my getting to my mid-20s. But yeah, I remember I was 21 and basically everyone around me was like, Josh, like we know you're passionate, you think you can do this, but we just think you need to wait a little bit, like maybe finish college. And I told everyone, I was like, look, and I don't know why, but I've just like, it's not that I even want, I have to do this. You know what I'm saying? I told people like, I have to run. Like, I just feel like I have to. And so year.
Be a little more specific. Why did you feel like you had to run? Like what was the motivating factor for you feeling like this is absolutely what needs to be done and I have to be the one to do it?
I think one of the main factors why I felt like I had like to do it in that time was one, I had a lot of momentum with me already going, and I felt like it was, if I was going to do it, that would have been one of the best times to do it. And then two, like if I didn't do it that year, I'd have to wait another 2 years for the next cycle to come up for me to run for office, And so it was like either that year or 2024, you know what I'm saying? And so like, it was like one of those things like, and I'm someone like if I feel something I need to do, like I don't want to wait 2 years because someone told me that I could and thank God I didn't listen, because now it's about to be 2024. I'm going to my 3rd year in office. You know what I'm saying? And so like, it's one of those things that like, and I think that's the sad thing about the world we live in sometimes, is some people, they never go after their full potential, their full dreams, because someone put doubt in their heart, you know what I'm saying? Or because something happened where it made them question their journey, it made them question their purpose. And I just happen to be blessed where I'm someone that I don't allow that to happen. I'm not like, I when I believe something, I'm gonna go for it. And so that year, I put everything on hold. I took a gap year at UW. And I said, I'm going to run for office. And so I filed.
Burn the boats. Way to commit.
I put everything on hold. I said, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this with my whole heart. I'm going to do this with everything I got. I put everything on hold. And I said, I filed to run for office. And at that point in time, I had no opponent, and so like it was on the news. Everyone's talking about, this 21-year-old activist is running for office and that. It was like all this hype was coming in. It was cool. I was like, I was thinking, it's gonna be a shoo-in, baby. Like no one's gonna challenge me. like this is gonna be cool. Like I just run this race. I'm gonna raise some funds and campaign and all that. And so as I'm campaigning, like for like a good half of my campaign, I didn't have a single opponent in my race. So like, I'm like, this is smooth as butter. You know what I'm saying? Like we're gonna do this. And so,
but someone saw a young black man running for office.
They can't let us have
like, hold on a second. We can't let this
we gotta
happen.
earn everything. They wasn't gonna let me have it like that. so it wasn't until the last day of filing. And the filing time period to file was 5 p.m. So up until the last day of the filing deadline, I had no opponent. It looked like I was just going to get the seat. You know what I'm saying? And the incumbent didn't look like she was going to run this and that. But then the last day, like I said, the deadline was at 5 p.m. And I remember checking. I looked at 4 p.m. No opponent. I'm like, all right, we cool. Like it's gonna be cool, right? I checked back in at 4:30. No opponent. I'm like, all right. like we're locked in now, you know, like in 30 minutes, what's gonna happen? You know what I'm saying? And
But
so
wait, 4:55, sir.
four, four, well, first it was
4:59.
it was 4:45, right? I
No.
remember coming back in and checking at 4:45, and I seen this dude. His name was like James Rutherford, whatever. Like came my race, and I'm like looking at his name. I'm like James Rutherford. I'm like, okay, like I don't know who this dude is, and so I'm like, all right, but look, I was like, you know what? It probably better off that I beat somebody. You know what I'm saying? So I was like, you know what? Like maybe this is better for me. And then and then so like I remember checking it was 4:57 p.m. and another woman, a woman named Lisa Utter, joined the race as well. And then so 5 o'clock. I remember this vividly. I'll never forget this day, man. 5 o'clock comes, you know, deadline's over. I call the mayor, like, because at that time the current mayor was in my support. And I remember talking to her. I was like, "Yeah." She's like, "How'd it go?" I'm like, "Yeah, a few people joined my race, but you know, it's what it is." And I remember telling her, I was like, "Yeah, some guy named James Rutherford." She said, "Oh, James Rutherford." She's like, "Oh, don't worry about him. He's some old Republican dude. He runs every year. Ain't nobody paying attention to him. You good?" I'm like, "Yeah, that's cool. James Rutherford. All right." I was like, "Yeah, another person named Lisa Utter." She's like, "Lisa Utter?" And I was like, "Yeah, Lisa Utter." She was like, "Oh, shh." And I was like, she's like, and I was like, "What you mean?" She's like, Lisa Utter is the incumbent. We all thought she wasn't going to run again. She's been in office for like 20 years and she hasn't lost a race. And I was like, "So what you like? So she's running against me?" And she's like, "Looks like it." And so I just remember at that time period, even though I'm a very confident person, that was one of the few time periods I think my confidence and my I remember just feeling defeated a little bit. I'm like, I'm like, damn, like this is a woman that's never lost a race. She obviously has all this name recognition, whatever. And I'm a 21-year-old college student in an 88% white old town. I'm going against a white older lady. You know what I'm saying? And I'm thinking to myself, man, like, do I even stand a chance? Like me and this and that. And I remember talking to a friend, just saying, damn, I don't know if I'm gonna do this. I don't know if I'm gonna pull this off. And she's like, "Josh, like you got to just trust and believe in your gut instinct and what made you want to do this in the first place, and don't give up." And I just remember saying to myself, "You know what? She's right." I'm like, "You know what? If I'm going, I was like, if I'm gonna lose this thing, I'm going out swinging. Like she's gonna have to beat me if this is gonna happen." And so I'm like, I'm not gonna just give up and lay on my back and like we're gonna run a campaign, we're gonna run a race. She's gonna have to earn this thing, and like me. I think a lot of my mentality transferred from athletics. Like I was always someone that was very purposeful in what I wanted to do and knew how to go after it. And so I ran a strong campaign and I went after it I see it. And I just remember I basically campaigned harder than ever. I door knocked thousands of doors. I went to many events and there's times, I would go to endorsement meetings and they would shut me out. They would endorse her and not endorse me. And I go to doorsteps, door knocking, I get kicked off people's porches, And so it's an uphill battle. But overall, I think once my message started going out there and people started seeing the kind of person I was and the grassroots kind of campaign I was running, it got to the point where I was going out door knocking. People were like, "Oh, you're that one kid that people been seeing around the neighborhood door knocking." I'm like, "Yeah, that's me."
You put the work in. You were like, "Hey, I'm up against someone with superior resources and someone who's got experience and a lot of support in the community, and like that's all well and good." But I'm sure at some point she probably took all that for granted. When you were out,
she didn't do a damn thing. She didn't do nothing. She didn't even put out a single sign. She didn't do it. She thought she's like, I have this in the bag. Like a 21-year-old kid. She's like,
exactly, Josh. We talked about that. Like that's why they threw her in there. Because they were
let that be a lesson for everyone listening. Like, and this is a local election for sure, but like in 2024, with your local candidates, your, state candidates and your presidential candidate, like it's one thing to be incumbent and take for granted that you have the name recognition, but also get out there and chop that wood, do the work. Like put the time in, make the effort. Like you can do amazing things if you put in the effort and the sweat and the tears and whatnot to make that happen.
But
and Josh
she
here
was
is a perfect
really
example.
concerned though, D. She would have been in the race since the beginning. That's the tell.
Oh yeah, like again, she took it for granted
and jumped in there like at the last minute. That was their attempted Hail Mary, you know, and it reveals the insincerity of what they were trying to do. They were just trying to keep a brother out of that seat. And you got to
really
talk about, Josh, you got to talk about.
And so long story short with that, primary came up. I won, and I won not only one, but I won pretty big. I think I got 45%. She got 29, and the Republican dude got like 28. But I beat her by like 16 points. Like, it was like a landslide. And then the general election came up in November. I think I won about 5%, and then became the youngest person ever elected in state history. So it's one of those stories that I never probably got more phone calls in my life than my election day. Everyone was like, bro, you really pulled that shit off. Like, what?
Yeah.
Like, people like, no way.
Yes. You were a fairly national story at the time, and that is what led me down the path of seeing your thirst trap pictures.
Yeah. And we can get so let's get into some of the other stuff that y'all. I know.
No, wait a second though. But before we do all of that, like, tell us about your district that you represent, your community, and the people that you're there to hopefully find a way to use government to empower them and better their lives.
Yeah. Well, I want to put this out there. Majority of my community actually really loves me and supports me and thinks that I'm the future and like all this and that. But we have that small little group, you know, that you know, they
exist everywhere. We call them haters.
Haters, straight up haters, you know. And so I think people see me and they think it's just refreshing. Like, I've been able to actually accomplish a lot as a city council member and able to get things done for my community, because I'm not someone to just sit back and all of that. I actually do the work, you know? And so for example, things I've been able to push forward so far, I think I was able to get about $200,000 in funding approved to have mental health clinicians in all of our schools in our entire city. So now we have 2 mental health clinicians in our schools helping our kids with mental health access and all of that in our middle schools, elementaries, and high schools. And that's something I was able to push forward. I think I was able to also get about $2 million.
Real quick, I'm glad you brought that up, because I feel like we take for granted, like, again, and you ran for office in 2021, correct? I feel like we take for granted the struggle that, like, not only adults were dealing with after 2020 and years long pandemic at this point, and all the complications that arose for that, but like the kids who spent months away from school and friends and like a regular schedule and like a functioning lifestyle, like that would be appropriate for the mental and emotional development of children. Like, they missed out on a whole year of growth. And not only that, like, we just tossed them back in. We're like, here you go, kids. It's day one. Go to school, make that shit work. And like, we didn't offer them any kind of, like, there was no like national plan to like integrate kids back into schools into like an educational curriculum, and like the dealing with the emotional trauma of being separated from friends and not social. Like, anyway, it was just whole disaster. Kudos to you for taking some steps to like just make life easier and more bearable for these poor kids.
Yeah, man. I would say, you know, I do a lot of work with the youth, and I don't think people understand how much that COVID year and a half about impacted. I would say one of the biggest age demographics that really impacted were kids transitioning from 7th to 8th grade and 8th to 9th grade. Like, that demographic. Like, there were kids that they were in 8th grade and they missed out their entire freshman year in person. And then they came back as sophomores with no, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that freshman year is so vital, I feel like, to some of those kids, like, coming in, learning the structure of things, like building friendships and all that kind of stuff. And they were on Zoom with these people they never met, you know, coming in. It was just a whole, like, I think people don't understand.
Yo, like, where would you be right now if your entire freshman year just got wiped off the slate? You missed the whole year and you're like, all right, I'm a sophomore, time to start. Like, I mean, you might not even be in office right now.
No, honestly, I would still be me because I was grown.
All right, well, thanks for totally erasing the point I was making.
After what I went through in the hood, I was grown already, man.
Gotcha.
Like, I would still be very
All right, you had a unique set of circumstances.
I don't know about anybody else.
Right. Yeah, you were like moving to Washington, baby. I was already in high school and I was like 10, bro. But yeah, no, that's
I was
that
already,
like
but
that.
for the
But
most
no,
part, I could see that being a huge shift in people's lives. You know, having that extra year, like it makes a difference. You know, and then seniors that missed out on their senior year, missed out on prom, missed out on all these other things. Like, you know what I'm saying? Things you were supposed to go graduation. Like, it's just a lot of things that I feel like it was very harmful towards our kids. And so I really, one of my biggest champions, and I'm definitely a champion for the youth, and I care a lot about their causes and their voices. And I really care about bringing their voices to the table because I see how empowering that is. During my campaign, most of my campaign staff were high school students, literally. You know what I'm saying? Like my campaign volunteers, my majority of my staff were high school students. I think my campaign manager was 21. The only a grown adult I had was a consultant, and that was it. Was him, and he was in his mid to early 30s. So we were a young team, and I think through my journey, I just seen how powerful the youth can be when they feel passionate about something, when they care about something, when they want to fight for something. You know, their voices and their implementation matters too. But I think that the older generation has a hard time giving them a platform to vocalize those things and to have a voice and to have a say. And I think that's why it's so important to be able to give the youth, not just say we care about youth issues, but and trying to be the ones to change it, giving them the voice and the platform to be the change themselves. You know, that's what we need. And I think the youth, that's why they really are there. They really support what I do and who I am, because I'm always someone that's all about youth empowerment and giving them that platform. So I think that was one of my big things I was focused on. And if I wasn't on the council, something like that wouldn't have ever been done. You know what I'm saying? Like, they wouldn't care about the mental health of students and all that if I wasn't, you know what I'm saying? And so the stuff like that, I was also able to get done. Like, I got $25,000 in scholarships for our youth and seniors to have access to the recreation center that we have. And so they were able to go in there, have access to the classes and be able to go there and stuff like that. And I think a big part of that was it came from my lived experience when I was growing up. I remember I couldn't afford to go to the YMCA. My mom couldn't afford the membership and stuff like that. But it was because of scholarships like that. When I remember my mom applied for some scholarships, that I was able to go to the YMCA. It kept me out of the streets. It kept me out of trouble. I was in there in the gym. Instead of being out on the streets with the gangbangers, I was in the gym working out or playing basketball and stuff like that. So it was a huge help and a huge way to keep me in a positive environment growing up.
And I'm sure once them dudes on the corner saw you run that 40, they was like, ain't nobody about to mess with this dude.
Oh no! I'll show you my hot man. I'm still fast. I still got it, you know. And so it's one of those things. But because of my lived experience, I saw the importance of that. So I was able to bring that to the table. You know what I'm saying? That's why it's so important to have people with different perspectives and different lived experiences at the table, because they see needs and niches that maybe someone else wouldn't be able to see, you know, or understand how important that is. And so stuff like that.
I appreciate you being a real life embodiment for the argument for diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Mm-hmm. It's real, and people don't understand. They think it's just they think people just want, and the reason, and I understand why there's some frustration, because there are people that all they are just a face card of diversity, equity, inclusion, not really the implementation of change. And those people ruin it for the actual people that are actually doing the work.
Oh, you ain't got to tell me spirit of the rule versus like letter of the law. I mean, and again, another dorky sports ball example, but like the Rooney rule in the NFL, like, okay, what good is a Rooney rule? Like where you like have these fake interviews with, you know, a diverse racial potential hire when you already picked a white guy to take the job, and like, but the eventuality of that is you do eventually come to the conclusion, or at least some people do, when they are presented with the opportunity to put a person of color in a position of power, it is actually not only the right decision, but a better decision than they would have made otherwise without having that opportunity. Well, you know, in the case of the NFL, forced on them. But yeah, it's not quite the same way in this regard, but like the value that you bring to the table isn't just the fact that your face is a different color than the other person who might have been in a similar position. It is the lived experience that they can't remotely equate to because they didn't have a similar set of experiences. And that doesn't make you better or it doesn't make you better or worse than anyone else. It's just like the opportunities that you see someone else might not have because they didn't have the similar experiences.
And I think and everything you said is spot on. I think it goes even deeper than that. Like, I think people see me as a real representation of what the community actually is. You know what I'm saying? Like y'all know I got swag, baby. I'm me. Like, I go up there, I talk my talk, I walk my walk, and I am who I am. And that authenticity is refreshing to people that see a lot of performative politics, a lot of performances, a lot of it. And I'm there. I know what it's like, the ribbon cutting and all this little BS that don't matter and all these little, like resolutions that don't matter. And like, it's just all to make themselves feel good. I'm like, but the real changes are happening, and just my representation. There's a young people of color, white people, young people, like people older that see me.
I get it. We'll go back to sports ball. You not there for the pep rally. You there to put points on the board.
Put points on the board. You know what I'm saying? And not just put points. I'm here to blow it out. You know what I'm saying? I'm here to blow out the board. Like, I'm not here just to be average. You know what I mean? I'm here to make a difference. I'm here to really be the change. And that's the thing. I think why I've been the target I've been, and why it's so frustrating to some of these other white people, is because I'm a representation. The more I excel, it exposes their white mediocrity. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes.
Oh, bro, they ain't ready to hear this on this podcast. That's not what they came for. They like, we got to be gentle.
Who's not? Our listeners?
No, I was just kidding, Carol. And you don't count.
Our listener,
Carol looks white, but she's actually Jewish, so she had to like.
I was telling my friend Whitney about how you keep.
Well, that's why I said you're not my favorite cracker. You're my.
It's
favorite
a running gag. Yes. Okay. Yeah, I say it like every week. I'm like, yeah, Carol Jewish. She doesn't count as a white person. That's our little joke. Yeah. Anyway,
but that's everything. It's like the way I see it. Like, I'm coming here to change the game. I'm revolution. Not many politicians have gone on tour, have done all this kind of stuff. Like, I'm changing. I want to change what the viewpoint of what politics is supposed to be, because it's not like, I feel like this whole, it's just a little too bland for me. It's a little too bland. It's like, I think we need to make it more
milk toast.
Milk, like, yeah, the cookie cut.
Vanilla. Politics is a little too vanilla waferish.
Vanilla wafer. And I think we need to spice it up a little bit, make it more real to the community. And I think the younger generation, that's why they fought to me so much, because they see like it's able to reach them, and they're able to care about it more. Like, nobody cared, like nobody around my district or anything. Like, the young people didn't care about city council until I got in. They saw me doing it, but I have the swag, and it's relatable. You know what I'm saying? And they see it, and they care about the importance of it, because it's coming to them in a way where they can relate to it. You know what I mean?
From a real human being, not some cardboard cutout. Yeah.
Not some cardboard cut. Like, you know what I'm saying? And I think that's the realness that I'm bringing to the table. I'm trying. Like, I see myself. I want to revolutionize the game. I'm here to be a revolutionary in it. I'm not here to like I have my whole life. I could be in my 20s in college having fun. If I'm doing this, it's because I'm here to make a difference. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not giving up my early 20s to come in here and be stale. I'm here to change the game. You know what I'm saying? And make the difference that's needed to be changed, to bring change to our communities. Because that's what's needed. We need enforcers. We need real change makers, not people just getting in these positions, holding a seat, and just keeping everything the same. That's where progress happens. I think we need more progress. And so that's kind of, I think my community, they see me, they know that kind of personality I have, and they see that fighter, and they love it, and I think they want more of that, and it's inspiring to other people. So, but with
that's why you're going into your third term, Josh.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you're going into your third term. That's how you flipped that seat, because they saw that genuineness in you. Like, you were going to them with real proposals, real understanding of what the community needs and what they wanted.
Mm-hmm.
What they want, period. And that's the difference, because the rest, they don't do that. They haven't done that, and they hate you for it. And they're going to hate on you, and they're hating on you for it.
Mm-hmm.
Period. Period.
I have to say, I'm very impressed by your positive attitude. It's inspiring to me, because I'm like, I have all these idealistic activist activities I want to participate in, and I got 2 little kids and working all the time. It's, you know, I'm trying, I get discouraged, but it's really encouraging. Like not just because as a young person, you're doing it for me. But like,
And you know what, Carol? I think
encouraging.
this is the perfect time for me to say that's why you need this book, baby. That's why I got a
Alrighty, it's that time.
chapter here.
It's that time. Segue.
I got a chapter here just for you, sweetie. It's called "It Comes Down to Execution."
All right, tell us about the book. What's the title?
yeah, you know,
Where can we pick it up? Yes, absolutely.
We're gonna take that segue into the book.
By the way, we'll have a link for the book in the show notes if you'd like to pick up a copy.
So for those who aren't aware, I mean, I haven't put this out to the public yet. But for the last 2 years, since I've gone elected in my journey and the adversity that I faced and the things I've had to accomplish as well. I spent the last 2 years. My purpose in this was I'm someone that believes in there's no point in me getting to where I'm at if it's just going to only be me to get here. And not only that, I think in the title of this book, I named this book, it's called Breaking Barriers. And so the last 2 years I've been writing this book about kind of a little bit about my journey, but also about the barriers I had to break to even become the person I was to even accomplish the goals I wanted to accomplish. And I think that the whole reason of this book being called Breaking Barriers, because I think we all have barriers in our lives that we need to break through in order to live up to our potential, in order to be who we're meant to be. You know, whether that's things like depression, anxiety, you know, trauma, you know, and all these things that could be inhibiting us from living up to our full potential. I think this book is a way to, it was meant to help people by my lived experience, but my lens of what I see, how to break certain barriers, work on breaking through their own barriers. So this book, it's a 94-page book. I wrote it I wrote it all by myself. It's self-published. It's going to be self-published coming out next week. And it's also a self-help workbook. So the cool thing about this book is there's a chapter in it. There's 9 chapters. And each chapter, there's going to be a chapter about a certain topic. For example, I'll give you an example here. Chapter 1 is called Turning Trauma into Triumph. And so the whole chapter is going to be about, I'm going to talk a little about my experience, some of the traumas I've gone through and some traumas and what trauma is and how to utilize your trauma instead of letting that hinder you to allow that to actually propel you to succeed in your life. And so the chapter is going to be about that. And then each chapter, what happens is there's 5 steps in each chapter that talks about ways you can work on that chapter. So I write this written down 5 steps you can take to improve in that chapter. And then also there's 5 questions on each chapter. I'll kind of give you guys a look here. I know the audience won't be able to see, but basically there's 5 questions in each chapter that you're going to be able to, it's questions meant to help you break through that part of it yourself and answer and kind of work on ways where you in your lens want to work on that, how you can work on it. And it's supposed to be able to create a way where, because I think a lot of us, we have these things and these things we want to work on, but sometimes we don't know where to start and we don't know how to break it down. And so these questions are meant to get you to get your mind thinking and to answer them yourself from your perspective, your lens. How do you feel you need to work on some of these things to be able to overcome that? And it's supposed to get your mind going. And so it's 5 questions in each chapter. And then at the end of every chapter, there's also a reflection page. And so it's a reflection page where you just reflect from your point of view, from everything you gain from the chapter, what you think you need to work on, how you think you need to work on things. And it's supposed to be, in a way, your own accountability book, you know? And so I wanted to write this book because I didn't want to just get through this journey and break these barriers and do all these things and then just be here. Now that I'm here, I want to help people navigate how to break certain barriers in their lives. And it doesn't have to be politics. This is something that's just our lives in general, you know, like the things we're going through, the things we do. And I think this book is timeless. I think it's ageless. I think it goes from the young generation to old generation. I think every one of us have barriers and things are inhibiting us, either whether that's from self-inhibited barriers or things that are externally challenging us from us to get to where we want to be in life. And so this book's meant to help us break through those things, navigate what those things are, and not letting those barriers inhibit us from being where we're meant to be. And if you want, I could read you the back verbiage of the verb of what this book is. I can read it to you.
Yeah.
So I'm read there's a blurb of what the book is, and there's a personal statement I wrote on the back of here. So I'll kind of read blurb here first. So it says, in his groundbreaking debut book, Breaking Barriers, Josh Binda invites readers on an inspiring journey towards unlocking their true potential and shattering their limitations holding them back in life. With captivating storytelling and profound insights, Binda shares his own personal triumphs and challenges, offering invaluable wisdom and practical strategies for overcoming adversity and achieving greatness. A must-read for those who refuse to settle for mediocrity, Breaking Barriers inspires readers to embrace their individuality, challenge societal norms, and dare to dream big. Whether you're an inspiring entrepreneur, a career-driven professional, or simply someone in search of personal growth, Binda's book is a game changer that will propel you towards achieving your goals and breaking barriers that stand in your way. So that's the blurb of it. And then I have a personal statement that I wrote here that says that after spending the last 2 years writing this book, I'm honored and humbled to get the opportunity to share this with the public. Breaking barriers is never easy and requires a level of vulnerability, authenticity, and honesty that is hard to put out there for the world to see. As someone who considers myself a leader and a public servant, I hope I can lead by example for those to follow, that it's okay not to be perfect, struggle, and not have it all figured out, and how that shouldn't stop you from succeeding. Hopefully, this book can help you get one step closer to the lifelong journey of self-discovery and growth. You need to become a better version of yourself. Signed, Josh Binda. So
You're a breath of fresh air, sir.
Oh,
Yeah, tell us where your book will be available next week.
So next week it's coming out. It's going to be on Amazon. And so the cool thing about this book as well, I want to mention this as well, because I like to do things and bring purpose to it as well. So this book, I'm partnering up with the local libraries here in all our districts. So this book's going to be in our local libraries, a couple copies. It's going to be in all the libraries in our district. And I'm also partnering with a nonprofit in my city called Clothes for Kids. And so they're a nonprofit that's dedicated towards giving out free clothes to kids that can't afford it and shoes. And I told you guys that growing up, I didn't have clothes. And I grew up in poverty. I didn't have these things. So when I got in touch with this nonprofit, I wanted to find a way where I could support. And so basically, for the first month while this book is out, 25% of all book proceeds is going to go towards donating towards Clothes for Kids nonprofit to support them. So that's something I'm doing. So it's going to be out on Amazon. And so I can send you guys the link once that comes out officially. So people will be able to buy it for Amazon. It's going to be selling for $24.99. So I'm looking forward to it being there. But yeah, I think Amazon's going to be the biggest platform to be selling on here, I would say here.
Well, we hope this thing blows up and we hope it changes some lives. And I would like to just ask you one last thing before we wrap it up here for anyone who's listening to the podcast. People may not necessarily feel the impetus to run for office the same way you do. But for someone who wants to make a difference in their community or in the political landscape outside of running for office, like what's one bit of advice you would give them? What would you tell them to do?
Man,
I know I dropped a heavy one on
no,
you.
No. The reason, that's not even a heavy question. The reason I say that because I think your question is so much deeper than what you say. I think it really comes down to, I think everyone has a purpose in life that they want to accomplish and dreams that they have and things they want to do to make a difference, whether that's office, whether that's just even being someone that is a game changer in their family, whether that's someone that just makes a difference in the corporate, like we all have different purposes, And I think, I was just having this conversation with a friend last night, and I was talking to them, and we just kind of, reminisce. A friend that knew me for a little bit before I even got into this and now. And it was just a real cool conversation to be able to talk about how far I've came. And they were asking me, man, like, what kept you, like, who you were? What kept you focused on doing what you were doing? And, like, what kept you wanting to be this? And, like, knowing, like, how'd you know this your route? I was like, I didn't know this was my route. But I think the biggest thing that helped me and, like, was that I just became fearless. I really became fearless. I think it's a hard thing to do because you kind of have to almost get to a point where truly no one else's opinion of you and what you are meant to be matters but you, and you have to get to a point where that at the end of the day, there's always going to be opinions, there's always going to be this and that, but you are the shot caller, and So I think getting involved and doing what you want to do, it just really comes from you. First of all, confidence is believing in yourself. You know, you got to have that confidence. You got to believe in yourself. You got to be willing to go through whatever you want, like whatever it takes to be where you want to be. So there's many ways you can do that. You know, there's many ways you can get involved. For me, I think I started off, like I said, it was activism. I started getting involved in like community events. I was the chair of our diversity, equity, inclusion. There's so many different routes. In politics, I would say you can start off that want to make a difference and all that you want. Like, it doesn't have to be the face or politics. It can be so many different avenues to it that are just as, you know, you can be someone that helps people get elected. You can be someone that like, there's so many different routes you could take in order to, it's just all about saying yes and finding out what your purpose is in it and what you want to bring to the world and what change you want to bring to the world. And then having the guts, you know, to go after that, no matter what someone says, or no matter what someone, like, I think it takes a certain level of having no fear to truly pursue that purpose that you want, you know, what you take and what it takes. And it's hard. It's hard. I would say for me, sometimes it was the people that loved me the most, sometimes that almost held me back from what I was wanting to do and what I was meant to be. And so it's getting to a point where you're operating in a sense of conviction. You know, it's not about, you know, what you necessarily like. It's something that you feel convicted about, where it's, and conviction is such a strong word because it's something that it's so strong and what you feel, what you're doing, what you want to do, that there's almost nothing that's going to stop you from doing it because you're convicted. You feel like it's just what you're meant to be and what you're meant to do. And so I think it's finding out, in terms of getting involved, finding out what brings that conviction out of you, what brings that passion out of you, what you want to do. Like, I tell people this all the time because, you know, I have people my age all the time. Like, we're all about, you know, the money. We're all chasing money. Like, we're all, you know, people my age, we're broke college kids, you know, so it's for us, it's about the bag. And it's about this and that, you know? And I tell people, yes, that's important and all that, but you want to find out what you're passionate about, what you want to bring to the world and all that. Because if you, like, I know people that make money, that are rich, whatever, and they're some of the most miserable people I ever met sometimes. I know some people that are making half of what they are, but because they're doing something they really care about and they're passionate about, they actually look like they're living fulfilled lives. And so I tell people all the time, go after what you're passionate about, go after what brings you conviction, because at the end of the day, you know you're going to do that to your fullest capability. You're going to be so good at that the money's going to come at some point, you know? And so I think there's many ways that people could get involved and should get involved. And I think whether that's activism, whether that's actually running for office, whether that's just, you know, helping people, volunteering, or just being aware of social issues and aware of what's going on in the world and using your platform to spread awareness of what's going on. I think that, like, I think they're all just as valuable. I think they're all just as important. I tell people all the time when I do speeches, I do all this and that. I think honestly, me being a city council member is just a title to me. I see it as just a title. I don't think the power is within the title. Some people think that there is, but there really isn't. I think the power is with the people. I always think that. I've always thought that. And I think that at the end of the day, I was just as powerful. I would say maybe I was even more powerful as before I was elected as I am now, or just as. And that doesn't change. Being a leader doesn't change whether you have a title or not. I know people that have this title and aren't leaders for jack crap, you know? And so it's just all about finding your purpose, finding your passion, what drives you, and being willing to go after it and step up and make a difference, whatever that looks like.
And that concludes this episode of Pardon the Insurrection.